Now we're continuing with the Mishnah on Daf Nun Zayin Amud Beis. Now the Mishnah is talking about a case where she did not visit her father before Pesach, but again, the Tanai was until Sukkot. So she went ahead and she had Hana, and the Mishnah says that if she would go visit her father after Pesach, then Lemafreya. So Liachar Pesach here, the Mishnah means that she visited her father after Pesach, and that's a Kiyum Tanai that activates the Neder, because the Tanai was that she wouldn't visit her father until Sukkot, meaning if she visits her father any time between Adar and Sukkot, that activates the Neder. She already had Hana from her husband before Pesach, and now after Pesach she visits her father, and that activates the Neder. Is then she violates Bal Yachel L'Mafreya. On the Hana that she had before Pesach, she violates Bal Yachel Dvar. Okay, we're coming close to the end of the Mishnah at least. Again, it's the month of Adar, and a man says to his wife, "Konam shat nenes li ad hachag, im holeches ad lebeis avich ad Pesach." This is the flip side of the previous case, and he prohibits her to have hana from him until Pesach, until Sukkot ad hachag, if she'll visit her father before Pesach. Holcha lifnei Pesach, and she was makayim the Tanai, and she that activates the Neder, and she went ahead and she visited her father before Pesach. Asur b'hana ad hachag. Then she's prohibited in benefiting from her husband until Sukkot. Why? Because she was Makayim the Tanai, and they activates the Neder. And the Neder is that she won't have Hana from him until Sukkot. Uteres leilech achar Pesach. But let's say she didn't visit her father before Pesach, so she was not Makayim the Tanai. So then the Neder is not active. So she's allowed to benefit from him because there's no Neder. And not only that, she can visit her father after Pesach because the Tanai was that Pesach, which she didn't do, so she never fulfilled the Tanai. The Neder is not activated, and therefore she can have Hana from her husband. What's the Chiddush here? So the Rad explains that the Chiddush is that we should make a Gzera and impose an Isa Neder even if she did not visit her father's husband, because maybe she'll forget that she's Asura Lehenos Mishal Baila. The Gemara says, "Omer leishto konem maisi yodayich olai konem heim al pi konem heim lefi also b'chilufeim u'b'giduleim." And now the Gemara is going to analyze this din of gidulei peros. There's the ikar, and then there's the gidul. Now he writes here as an introduction to this Gemara that Ikra Shal HaSafek, who we're about to formulate a Safek that was raised by Yishmael Ish Kfar Yama, Be'inyan Peros Uzroim, if it's Ein Zaro Kola, which means Bitzolim and Shum. Now this is not a suffix that's limited to Neder. We'll see later on it has application to Neder, but that's not going to come in today's daf. Today's daf, we're talking about an Isa like Shvius or Truma or Orla, Kilayim, and he took this Hefta Disura and he planted it, and it's Ein Zaro Kola. Now, what happens if there's more of a rove in the Gidul, which is Heter, than there is in the original Ikar? So you have Ikar, and then you have Gidul. And the question here is can we apply the principle of Bittul? And now we can say that the Gidul, which is Heter, and is Rove, is now Mevatel the Ikar, or do we say no? On the contrary, there's an Isur Yotze, and since the Ikar, which was Shvius or Olo Kalayim or Truma, was Asur, and now the Gidul was Yotze bin Asur, then we have a principle called Yotze bin Asur Asur. Yishmael Ishkar Yoma, Amri Lo Ishkar Dima, Hela Biyado, he had a suffix, but so, right? We said that an onion is Ein Zaro Kola, Sha'akaro, he took it out on Shvius, on the 7th year, so that onion is an onion that has Kedusha Shvius, and all these Surim of Shvius that apply to that onion, Udito B'Shvius, and he plants it in the 8th year. So that which grows in the 8th year is Heter. And Ravu Gidulav al Ikro, that which came out of the onion, that was produced by the onion after he planted it, is greater than the Ikar, than the original onion. So we're talking about a volume of Heter, that's Rov, and should be Mevatel the Ikar. So what's the status now? And Yishmael is vacillating about the Kedusha Shvius. Is the Kedusha Shvius Chal on both the Ikar and the Gidulim? Because the Gidulim on Imshachim, they are Yotze from the Ikar. The Ikar is Kedusha Shvius. Or should we say the opposite? That since he has Rov in the Gidul, which is Shminis, it's Heter, that's going to be Mevatel the Ikar. And we'll apply the principle of Bittul. Hachi Kabi Boil. Gidul of Heter, the Ikro Isur, Kevin Sharabu Gidulov, Me'ikaro, Osom Giduli Heter, Malim means Mevatlim Esa Isur. Shall we say that since he has Rov in the Gidulim, which is Shminis, that's going to be Mevatel the Ikar, the original onion of Shvius, and we're going to apply the principle of Bittul like we do in any Tarovis, that the Heter is Mevatel the Isur, Midin Rov. Oh, lo, what do we say? No, that it's impossible for the Gidul, which is Yotze min Ikar, to be Mevatel the Ikar, because the Gidul gets the same status as the Ikar through the din of Yotze, and therefore not only does the Batzal remain also within Kedusha Shvius, but even the Gidulim now, as Yotze, take on the status of Shvius and are also. Also, Lakame, Yishmael came to Rabbi Ami, Velohavi Biyodeh. And Rabbi Ami did not know the answer to the question. We'll see later on that Rabbi Ami did have an answer to this question. But right now, Lohaya Biyodeh. So what does he do, Yishmael? Also, Lakame to Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha, he comes to Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha and asks him the question, and Pashatly. Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha had an answer to this question from Rabbi Yochanan. No, I'm sorry, from Rabbi Yana. Let me not confuse that. Min Hadah, from the statement of Rabbi Chanina, Tresa Omar Rabbi Yana in the name of Rabbi Yana. Okay. So what did Rav Yanai say? He wasn't talking about Shvius, he was talking about Truma, which is also Lazarim, and has to be eaten by the Kohen and Bitara. And Batzal Shal Truma, which by the way is only the Rabbanon, but in any event, he planted an onion of Truma, Nito, Rabu Gidula Valikar. This is exactly the scenario that we had in Shvius with the onion of Shvius that Yishmael had asked about, but now we're talking about an onion of Truma. And Rabu Gidula Val Ikro, that which came and was produced by the onion, which is not Truma, is Rov vis-a-vis the Ikar, meaning the original onion, which is Truma. Mutter. What's mutter? The onion itself is mutter. It loses its status of Truma, and it's batel to the Gidulim, which is Ikar, and Kolshkein, it goes without saying that the Gidulim are mutter, and we're not going to apply the principle of Yotze, but rather we're going to apply the principle of Bittul. Amalei Rab Yirmiyah, V'itei Rab Zrika, Shavik Mar Train B'Yavik Echad. Are you paskening based on Rab Yanai when we have two different Amoraim in two different scenarios that disagreed with Rab Yanai? And perhaps we should paskin l'chumra against Rabbi Yanai based on the fact that we have Yachim v'Rabim, Alocha k'Rabim. My Ninu train. So who are these two Amoraim? So first we're going to study Rabbi Yochanan, and then we're going to study Rabbi Yonasan. So let's go one by one. Yom Rabbi Avo and Rabbi Yochanan. And now we have something called a Netia Yalda, which means a young sapling. What does young mean? Young means that's less than 3 years old since it was planted. And during the first 3 years, all the parents are also Mishum Orla. Shesimcha is Kena. Kena means it's after the 3 years. And what does Shesimcha mean? Simcha means her kiva, he grafted. So he grafted an Orla tree onto a post-Orla tree, a tree of Heter. Uba, now this Netia Yalda, the sapling of an Orla tree, peros, it has peros on it. Okay. It has peros on it. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit under the weather, so I'm trying to do the best I can. Okay. All right, now let's understand. And this is all based on the Ran. Mitzad Ikar Adin, according to the strict letter of the law, li'achar kova, after the grafting, batla hanatia, meaning the seira, bizkena. The kol aperos hagdelim olem mikan v'elech mutarim v'enim arla. So what's he saying over here? Mitzad Ikar Adin, I'm going to read it again. Li'achar kova, after the grafting, batla hanatia bizkena, and now we'll make a distinction. We're going to say the following. Those fruits that grew on the Netia Tzeira, the Netia Yalda, which were Orla, and that's before the Arkava, those are Orla. But now, after the Arkava, if this grafted tree produces fruits, those fruits are not Orla. Afal Pisho Sifa Masayim Osur. So what does this mean, Hosifa? This is a very important concept, Hosifa. As a result of the grafting, the fruits continue to grow. So in other words, the fruits on the Yalda, on the Natiya Yalda, were in a state of development, but they weren't fully developed. And they continue to grow after the grafting. And Hosifa Masayim, right? The shear of bittul of Orla, if let's say Orla gets mixed up with Heter, is a bittul b'Masayim, a ratio of 1 to 200. So here the Tosefes that grew from those pairs of Orla was 200 times the size of the original before the Harkava. Awesome. In other words, we're going to apply the principle of Yotze. We're not going to allow for bittul, even though there's 200 in the Tosefes, connected the original Arla from the Natiya Seira. Nevertheless, we're going to suspend the normal din of bittul because the Gidul, the Tosefes, is Nimshach Achara Ika. So we see from Rabbi Yochanan that he rejects Rabbi Yana. Rabbi Yana was of the opinion that the Gidul in the Shminis of Heter is Heter, and therefore could be Mavatil the Ika. Actually, just to be more precise about it, Rabbi Yana was not talking about the original question of Yishmael of Shvius, but rather the case of Truma. But it's the same principle, that the Gidulim are separated from the Ikar. They become a separate halachic entity, and they are not Truma, and therefore they can be Mavatal even the Ikar. But Rabbi Yochanan is saying, on the contrary, that the Tosefes is considered Nimshach Achara Ikar. And even if the Tosefes is enough for Bittul, nevertheless, there's no din of bittul over here. The Tosefes is considered gets the same status as the Ikar. So that's one Amora that disagrees and rejects Rav Yana. Now we have another Amora, Rav Shmuel bar Rabbi Nachmani, Rav Yonason, but Saul Sheneta'o B'Kerem. Now we have Kalayim, and he took an onion of Heter and he planted it in a vineyard. So now we have a taroves of Geffen with Batzal, and that's also Mano Mishum Kelayim. And then what happened? The Nekar Akerem, okay, what's the Nekar Akerem? If I understand correctly, it means he uprooted the Kelayim. One second. What's the Nekar Akerem? Batel Orov HaAsur. Masha Gadol ben Abatzal Mikan V'elech. I think the Nekar HaKerem means that somehow he separated the Batzal from the Kerem. I'm not sure why he says Nekar HaKerem. I would have said Nekar HaBatzal. So now the batzal, having been removed from the kerem, continues to grow. Let's say he plants it again, and there's no Isur Kalayim now because all he has is the batzal. But that which grows came from a batzal of Kalayim. And Rabbi Yonasan says also. He writes here, Af liachar akiras hakerem. Again, I think what he means by akiras hakerem is that the batzal is in the ground and it was planted in a vineyard. Now he removes the vines of the vineyard. So what's left is the batzal. That batzal is kilayim and it continues to grow. And it produces a vegetation which is heter because it's no longer mixed with the keren. He took out the keren. He ripped out the keren. And now the amount that grows from the batzal is masayim, which is the shear of bittul for klaya keren. And yet, Rabbi Yonasan Paskins also. We're not going to apply bittul, to suspend the din of bittul, even though that which was produced by the batzal after the akiras hakerem was masayim, which is the shear of bittul. We're going to suspend the normal operation of bittul. Why? Because these gidulim, that which grows from the batzal, which is kilayim, is nimshach lios kimoso. It's like yotze. So we see now in some that both Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yonasan rejected Rabbi Yanai. And therefore, we don't understand why is it that Rabbi Yitzchak Nafka paskin lekula based on Rav Yanai, when Rav Yanai was rejected by both Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yonasan. Hadar asal akami Rav Ami. If you remember, originally, this question of Yishmael Ishkar Yoma was brought to the attention of Rabbi Yanai, and he didn't have an answer to it. But now he comes back to Rabbi Yanai, to Rabbi Ami a second time, Upashat le min hadah. And now Rabbi Ami, found an answer to the original question because he discovered a statement of Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, and now we're going to go L'Kula. And all the Mefarshim are going to ask, isn't this a stira between what we said before in Rabbi Avo in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, that the Gidulim were Nimshach Batzar Ikar, and there's no bittul, but here Rabbi Yitzchak is quoting Rabbi Yochanan. Apparently there were two different traditions as to what Rabbi Yochanan himself held, in which he's going to apply the principle that the Gidulim are Mavatal the Ikar. Litra, which is a certain measurement, a weight measurement of Bitzolim. Shetikna, in other words, they were Tevel, and he was Mafresh Trumas and Maestros. That's called Tikna. So it removes the Isur Tevel, Uzra, and now he plants it in the field. Now there are new Bitzolim that grow from this Batzal that was Chulin, and the question is he Chayav in Trumas and Maestros on that which produced by the Batzal? Does it have the status of the original Batzal, and therefore it's Chulin? Or is it brand new produce, and therefore it's Tevel, and it requires Trumas and Maestros? So Rabbi Yochanan is quoted as saying, Misaseres Lefi Kula. He's going with Chumrah. And he's saying that you need to be mafresh Trumas and Maestros, not only from the Gidulim, but even from the Ikar. He was already mafresh one time from the Ikar on the original Batzal before he planted it. And now he needs another afrosha. Why? Alma, we see from Rabbi Yochanan that Osom Gidulim mevatlem Ikar. In other words, we apply the principle of Bittul, and the Gidulim are mevatel the Ikar. So just like the Gidulim are Tvuah Chadasha, are new growth, and therefore they're subject to the din of Tevel and the Chiv Trumas and Maishus. Now the Ikar takes on the status of the Gidul. And now everything is Tevel. And he has to be mafresh even from the Batzal. So now we can be poshet the Safek of Yishmael. Why? Because we see from Rabbi Yochanan that what's Kovea is not the Ikar, but rather the Gidulim. And if there's a rove of the Gidulim, it's Mevatel the Ikar. So the Ikar is Nimshach Achar Gidul. So now we go back to Yishmael. He took a Batzal of Shmiz, planted it in Shminis, and the halach is going to be that it's not Nimshach Achar Ikar, but on the contrary, the Ikar is Nimshach Basa the Gidul, and therefore it'll be a bittul. And even the original Batzal, which had Kedusha Shvius, is no longer Kadosh, but Kedusha Shvius. So the Gemara rejects it. It says, Dilma L'chumra Shaini. You have no proof, Rabbi Ami, from the statement of Rabbi Yochanan, because Rabbi Yochanan was only being machmir. He established a chumrah of tevel with a chiv trumas and maisers, but that's not the ikar din. The real din is that the gidulim have the same status as the ikar. The gidulim are nimshach achar ikar. It's yotzeh. He said Yechayev to be meiser even on the ikar when that batzal was already chulin. That's a chumrah derabbanan. So at this point in the sugya, we need another source to answer the question, be poshet the suffix of Yishmael. Element Adon the Sanya, and Belineder tomorrow we'll learn the brisa of Rabbi Yishmael here on Daf Nun Ches. Kol davar sheyesh lo matirim kigon tevel u'maseh sheni v'hegish v'chodesh lo naslu v'hem chachamim shir. Okay, so that's going to be the sugya Belineder for tomorrow. And we're going to try to be poshet the suffix of Yishmael. Thank you so much.